The air in the old abandoned gas station hung thick and metallic, a scent Leo hadn't bothered to identify beyond bad. Outside, the once familiar hum of suburban life had been replaced by sporadic screams and the sickening crunch of something. Leo was hunched behind a crumbling counter, the cold concrete seeping through her thin jacket. She'd been driving, just driving, trying to outrun the news reports, the panicked phone calls, the sheer, unadulterated terror that had descended like a plague. Then, the roads became impossible. A pile-up, bodies, not quite dead, not quite alive, crawling over each other. She'd abandoned the car, the key still stubbornly in the ignition, and stumbled into this desolate roadside refuge. Her first real glimpse of it wasn't on a screen. It was through the grimy window of a cafe as she tried to get gas. A woman, normal a minute before, suddenly lunged at the man beside her, her teeth sinking into his arm. The man screamed, a strangled, gurgling sound, and then, he started to change. His eyes glazed over, his skin seemed to pale and stretch, and his movements became jerky, unnatural. He turned on the others in the cafe, and the scene devolved into pure chaos. Leo saw flesh being ripped, heard shrieks that would forever be etched into her memory. It was primal, horrific, and utterly unreal. She'd slammed her door shut and sped away, tires spitting gravel, the image burned behind her eyelids. Now, the silence was a gnawing entity. Was it safe? Was anyone else out there? The gnawing hunger in her own stomach was a constant, unwelcome reminder of her vulnerability. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every creak of the building was a prelude to something monstrous. She'd found a half-eaten bag of chips, stale and pathetic, but it was something. As she chewed, the sheer hopelessness of it all washed over her. The world hadn't just gone wrong, it had gone dead, and the dead were now the living. What do you even do when the world is being eaten alive? She peered out again, scanning the empty, debris-strewn parking lot. A glint of metal caught her eye, a car, parked not too far off. Hope, a dangerous thing, flickered. But then she saw it. A figure, shambling towards the car, its gait uneven, its arms outstretched. It was one of them. And it wasn't alone. More were emerging from the surrounding woods, drawn by some invisible signal, a hunger that transcended even death. Leo's breath hitched. Her mind, already frayed, was screaming. Run. Hide. Fight. None of the options felt right, none felt safe. The isolation was crushing, the constant dread a heavy blanket. She was utterly, terrifyingly alone. If anyone is listening to this, if this recording ever gets out, please, subscribe to the channel. Leave a like. It's a long shot, I know, but it's all I have left. This might be the last thing I ever record. Leo hugged her knees tighter, the cold seeping into her bones. The sun was starting to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple that felt like a cruel joke. The darkness was coming, and with it, the true reign of the infected. She couldn't stay here. But where to go? Every direction felt like a death sentence. Leo knew staying put was no longer an option. The gnawing fear in her gut, amplified by the fading light, pushed her to her feet. She needed to move, to find shelter, any shelter, before night fully descended. The silence, once a fragile comfort, now felt heavy, pregnant with unseen threats. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves, sent a jolt of adrenaline through her. Her eyes darted from shadow to shadow, half expecting to see movement, to see them. She grabbed her backpack, the few meager supplies inside feeling utterly inadequate. Water, a half-eaten energy bar, a battered flashlight, and a small, tarnished locket. That was it. Her entire world condensed into a worn canvas bag. She hesitated for a moment, looking back at the abandoned bus stop. It had offered a brief illusion of safety, a place to catch her breath. Now, it was just another relic of a life that no longer existed. The wind picked up, carrying with it a faint, unsettling smell. It wasn't the smell of decay, not exactly, but something metallic, something wrong. Leo pulled her jacket tighter, her breath misting in the cooling air. She started walking, her pace quickening with each step. The road stretched out before her, an endless ribbon disappearing into the deepening gloom. She had no destination in mind, just the desperate need to put distance between herself and whatever was lurking in the quiet. As she rounded a bend, the road opened up into a small, forgotten clearing. In the center stood a dilapidated gas station, its paint peeling, a few shattered windows hinting at past violence. It wasn't ideal, but it was better than nothing. A roof over her head, walls to keep out the night. Or so she hoped. She approached cautiously, her senses on high alert. The silence here was even more profound, an oppressive blanket that seemed to absorb all sound. The metal sign above the pumps creaked rhythmically in the wind, a lonely, mournful sound. Leo pushed open the front door of the station, the hinges groaning in protest. Dust motes danced in the last rays of sunlight filtering through the grimy windows. The air inside was stale, thick with the scent of old gasoline and something else, something that made her skin crawl. She moved deeper into the store, her flashlight beam cutting through the oppressive darkness. Shelves were overturned, products scattered across the floor, evidence of a desperate scramble. A child's toy, a stuffed bear, lay half buried under a pile of debris, its button eyes staring blankly. Leo's heart ached for the forgotten lives, the stories lost in the chaos. Then she heard it. A soft, scraping sound from the back room. Leo froze, her breath catching in her throat. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the building settling. It was something else. Something moving. Her hand trembled as she tightened her grip on the flashlight, the beam wavering. The scraping stopped. Silence. For a moment, Leo allowed herself to believe she had imagined it. Then, the sound came again, closer this time. A dragging, shuffling noise, punctuated by a low, guttural moan. It was coming from behind the locked door at the end of the aisle. The lock on the door was old, thick with rust. Leo knew breaking it down would take more than just a shove. She scanned the dimly lit storage room, her flashlight beam bouncing off dusty shelves stacked with forgotten items. A sturdy metal pipe lay on the floor, probably left by maintenance. That would do. She hefted the pipe, testing its weight. It felt solid, dependable. The moaning behind the door grew louder, more desperate. It wasn't an animal. Not anymore. Whatever was making that sound sounded broken, consumed. Leo took a deep breath, the stale air doing little to calm her nerves. She gripped the pipe tighter and approached the door. The wood was warped, stained dark in places she didn't want to think about. She raised the pipe, aiming for the lock. With a sharp crack, the metal bit into the rusted mechanism. It groaned in protest, then splintered. The second strike was harder, fueled by a growing dread that gnawed at her. The lock burst inward, the door swinging open a few inches with a long, drawn-out creak. Leo recoiled slightly, her heart hammering against her ribs. The smell that wafted out was worse than she'd imagined, damp earth, something metallic, and that indefinable stench of decay. She pushed the door open further, the flashlight beam cutting through the darkness within. It was a small, cramped space, barely more than a closet. And there, huddled in the corner, was the source of the sounds. It was a person, or what was left of one. Gaunt, skin stretched tight over bone, eyes wide and vacant. They wore tattered rags, and their limbs were twisted at unnatural angles, as if they'd been trapped there for an eternity. The groaning stopped as Leo's light fell upon them. A flicker of recognition, or perhaps just terror, crossed the emaciated face. Leo couldn't speak. She just stood there, the pipe still clutched in her hand, staring at the ruined human being. This wasn't just a haunting, it was a tragedy played out in slow, agonizing motion, hidden away in the bowels of the building. The person, the thing, slowly, painfully, raised a hand, reaching out towards the light, towards Leo. A sound, barely a whisper, escaped their cracked lips. Leo couldn't make out the words. She took a hesitant step forward. The air in the small space was thick, oppressive. The figure flinched with her movement, a tremor running through their frail body. Leo lowered the pipe, the fight draining out of her, replaced by a chilling pity. She wasn't sure what to do. Call for help. But who would believe her? And what could they even do for someone so far gone? The figure let out another soft moan, a sound so full of sorrow it seemed to echo the loneliness of the empty building. Leo felt a profound sadness wash over her. This was not a monster to be fought, but a victim, lost and forgotten. She stepped fully into the cramped space, her flashlight beam steady now, illuminating the pathetic scene. She crouched down, the damp concrete cold beneath her knees. What could she offer? Not salvation, not anymore. But perhaps, in the end, a moment of presence. A witness to their final suffering. The figure's eyes fixed on hers, and for the first time, there was a hint of something besides despair. Something like acceptance. He remembered the smell first. Like rotten meat left too long in the sun, but worse, so much worse. It clung to everything, a constant reminder of what had happened. Arthur, a middle-aged accountant who'd always preferred spreadsheets to people, was on his rooftop balcony in downtown Chicago when it started. Not with a bang, but with screams. Distant at first, then closer, more frantic. He'd peeked over the edge, his stomach churning, and saw it. The usual morning rush hour had dissolved into chaos. People weren't just running, they were lurching, their bodies twisted in unnatural ways, mouths contorted in silent, gurgling snarls. He watched, frozen, as a woman, her face a mask of terror, was tackled by what looked like her neighbor, now a grotesque parody of a human, eyes milky white, skin mottled and gray. He saw the teeth sink in, heard the wet, tearing sounds, and then the screams turned into a different kind of noise, a guttural hunger. His first instinct, surprisingly, wasn't flight. It was disbelief. This couldn't be real. He pinched himself. It hurt. He looked at his hands, perfectly normal. Then he saw one of them stumble onto the street below, its arm hanging at a grotesque angle, flesh ripped away. It moved with a jerky, relentless gait, drawn by the scent of the living. Arthur backed away from the railing, his heart hammering against his ribs. The world he knew, the predictable, orderly world of debits and credits, had just imploded. He stumbled back inside his apartment, locking the balcony door as if that could keep the horror out. He didn't grab any survival gear, no weapons. He just sat on his couch, staring at the television, which was broadcasting a scrambled emergency alert before cutting to static. The silence that followed was more terrifying than the screams. Days blurred into a haze of fear and gnawing hunger. His pantry was well stocked for a man who lived alone, but the thought of venturing out for more was a fresh wave of dread. He'd hear them outside, shuffling, groaning. Sometimes, they'd bang against the building's metal doors, a sound that vibrated through his bones. He learned to move silently, to listen for the telltale drags and moans. The psychological toll was immense. The sheer, overwhelming wrongness of it all ate at him. He'd see their vacant, hungry eyes through the sliver of his blinds and imagine his own reflection, wondering if the hunger was already starting to bloom within him. He began to question everything, his past life of mundane routine now seeming like a cruel joke. The trust he'd once placed in society, in law and order, had evaporated like mist. His supplies dwindled. The water in his taps stopped running. Desperation began to gnaw. He knew he couldn't stay cooped up forever. The gnawing in his own stomach was becoming a constant, unwelcome companion. He thought of his sister, Sarah, who lived across town. Was she even alive? The thought was a searing pain. He had to try. But the thought of walking amongst them, of facing those soulless husks, was paralyzing. He'd seen enough on the news, enough from his balcony, to know that every encounter was a gamble, a potential death sentence. He needed a plan, but his mind felt like a jumbled mess of numbers and fear. He just knew he had to move, had to get out. The apartment, once his sanctuary, now felt like a tomb. He shoved the door open, the hinges groaning in protest. The hallway was dimmer than usual, a thick, almost tangible gloom that seemed to cling to everything. A low, guttural moan echoed from somewhere down the corridor. He froze, his heart hammering against his ribs. It wasn't just a sound, it was a palpable threat, a promise of what awaited him outside. He gripped the crowbar tighter, its cold metal a small comfort. He wasn't sure what he expected to find, but it certainly wasn't silence. The air itself felt heavy, laced with an odor that was both metallic and something else, something decayed and foul. Taking a hesitant step, then another, he moved towards the stairwell. Each creak of the floorboards beneath his feet sounded like a siren's call. He imagined eyes, unseen and hungry, tracking his every move. He reached the door to the stairs and paused, listening intently. The moaning had stopped, replaced by a chilling silence that was arguably worse. It was the kind of quiet that precedes an attack, a predator's brief moment of assessment before the strike. He pushed the stairwell door open, revealing the descent into further darkness. The concrete stairs were slick with an unknown substance, adding another layer of unease to his already frayed nerves. He started down, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. The darkness swallowed the light from the hallway behind him, leaving him in near total blackness. He could feel the oppressive weight of the building pressing in on him, as if it too was alive and watching. A sudden scuttling sound from below made him jump. It could have been rats, but given the circumstances, he doubted it. He imagined long, grasping limbs, pale and skeletal, reaching out from the shadows. He resisted the urge to run, knowing that any sudden movement would only draw attention. He had to remain calm, had to think. He reached the ground floor, the main lobby. Moonlight, filtered through grimy windows, cast long, distorted shadows that danced and flickered. The usual sounds of the city, distant sirens, traffic, were absent. Instead, there was only that unnerving stillness, punctuated by the occasional rustle or groan from somewhere within the building. He moved cautiously towards the exit, his senses on high alert. He could feel a presence, a subtle shift in the air that suggested something was near. It wasn't just one thing, it felt like many, moving with a purpose that was both relentless and utterly alien. He could see the heavy glass doors leading outside. Just a few more steps. But then, a shadow detached itself from the deeper darkness near the reception desk. It was tall, gaunt, and moved with a jerky, unnatural gait. Its head lolled unnaturally to one side, and a low, wet rasping sound emanated from its throat. It wasn't alone. More shapes began to emerge from the gloom, converging on him. He turned, the crowbar raised, a desperate, primal fear surging through him. The exit was right there, but the path to it was now blocked. He swung the crowbar wildly, a guttural yell tearing from his throat. The first one, the tall, lanky one, lunged. He felt a searing pain as something sharp raked across his arm, tearing through his jacket and flesh. He stumbled back, the crowbar connecting with something yielding but solid. A wet thud, and it went down, but another was already upon him. They were faster than they looked, their movements erratic but effective. He was being pushed, cornered against a wall. He could feel them breathing on him, a foul, stagnant air. He risked a glance behind him. The reception desk was still there, a beacon of relative safety in the encroaching nightmare, but the figures were pressing in. He saw another hand, thin and unnaturally long, reach out from the darkness to his left. Panic threatened to consume him. He needed to break free, to create an opening, any opening. He dropped low, jamming the crowbar under the chin of the closest assailant. It wasn't elegant, but it bought him a second. He scrambled to his feet, ignoring the throbbing pain in his arm. The rasping sounds were louder now, a chorus of decay. He saw a flicker of movement near the main entrance doors, a hint of the outside world. Hope, a fragile ember, ignited within him. He pushed forward, using the crowbar like a shield, deflecting their grasping limbs. He was outmatched, outmaneuvered, but not yet defeated. He slammed the crowbar into the chest of one that was too close, felt it buckle and fall. That was his chance. He burst through the remaining figures, a desperate sprint for the illuminated exit. The cold night air hit his face, a welcome shock. He didn't stop. He ran, fueled by adrenaline and the primal urge to survive. He didn't look back. He couldn't. The sounds from inside, the rasping and the shuffling, seemed to follow him, echoing in the sudden silence of the street. He just kept running, the torn fabric of his jacket flapping in the wind, the throbbing in his arm a constant, grim reminder of what he had faced, and what he had left behind. He ran until his lungs burned and his legs gave out, collapsing on the deserted sidewalk, the taste of fear and freedom in his mouth. He was out. But the memory of those gaunt, unseeing faces, and the wet, rasping sounds, would stay with him, a shadow that even the brightest street lamp couldn't dispel. Thank you for joining me on this journey. As you've seen, the world can change in an instant, and survival often hinges on swift action and a clear head. The stories we've explored, from the desperate flight through darkened streets to the quiet, watchful moments of solitude, all underscore a vital truth: preparedness is not just a precaution, it's a fundamental aspect of resilience. Think about the sheer desperation etched on faces forced to adapt, to find resources where there seemed to be none. The narrative of Elias, scavenging for sustenance, highlights the ingenuity born from necessity. His ability to fashion a rudimentary water filter from scavenged materials, turning a stagnant puddle into something potable, wasn't just luck, it was a testament to forethought and a refusal to succumb to despair. It's a powerful reminder that even in the bleakest circumstances, knowledge and resourcefulness can be your greatest allies. And then there's Anya, whose strategic thinking in fortifying her small dwelling against unseen threats spoke volumes. Her meticulous planning, reinforcing windows, and creating escape routes, wasn't about hoarding or paranoia, it was about asserting control in a chaotic environment. Her approach to rationing supplies, ensuring she had enough for an extended period, exemplifies the long-term vision crucial for enduring prolonged hardship. These aren't just tales of close calls, they are lessons in the practical application of survival skills. My advice to you, should the unimaginable ever occur, is to cultivate that same spirit of proactive readiness. Always have a basic go-bag packed, containing essentials like water purification tablets, a durable multi-tool, a first aid kit, and a reliable method for starting fires. Think of it as an investment in your own future, a way to mitigate the impact of unforeseen events. Most importantly, remember the power of your own mind. In moments of sheer terror, when your heart pounds and your thoughts race, the ability to pause, breathe, and assess the situation is paramount. Panic is a luxury none can afford. Elias, even with his injured arm, managed to find moments of calm to plan his next move, and Anya's unwavering composure allowed her to make rational decisions when fear could have easily overwhelmed her. True strength lies not just in physical capability, but in the mental fortitude to remain collected when everything else is falling apart. I hope these accounts have offered both a chilling glimpse into a potential reality and a spark of inspiration for your own preparedness. If you found value in these narratives, please consider subscribing for more insights and stories. Your thoughts and experiences are incredibly valuable, so feel free to share them in the comments below. Let's continue to learn and grow together, prepared for whatever lies ahead.